A whistleblower's production. How did all this happen? What happened to our Constitution, our freedoms, our rights, our First Amendment that would have prevented this internal conflict between two religions that never should have been united, experiment or not? This information will hopefully compel them to pull the plug on the Crossroads experiment because it didn't work. It had casualties and was exposed prematurely. When Ronald Reagan's horoscope was cleared by Nancy's personal witch, America changed course. Ronald Wilson Reagan freed the hostages by making a deal with Iran, with the Islamic Revolution and the United Nations to change the fabric of America, to make it just as Islamic as it was Christian, and saw nothing wrong with uniting with the Islamic Revolution. And why Ronald Reagan publicly declared that the Taliban are the moral equivalent of the Founding Fathers, believing the lie that the God of Islam is the same God as the God of the Bible, and thus gave power and authority and unlimited stingers and arms to defeat a competing superpower, and celebrated, with very few realizing that a much greater danger would fill the void, and that we would be the ones sleeping with this beast, as we're just beginning to see. Ronald Wilson Reagan would change the laws of the IRS to allow taxes to be collected from churches in America, a poll tax, per capita tax, whatever law you'd like to call it. Churches were now subject to the collection of taxes, thanks to this one who gave power, honor, and authority to the terrorist whose goal is to establish global Sharia law, all by this one 666, who Christians praise as one of their own. Then comes George Bush Sr., addressing the United Nations on 9/11, declaring that the United States was implementing the New World Order, was in compliance with the New World Order plan, and would implement it in America. Yet still today, many don't have a clue as to what the New World Order really is, with all the intentional misinformation distributed through their Department of Deception and free press suppression. But just so you know, the New World Order was a peace proposal for the United Nations, Consideration for World Peace, in a booklet by Maulana Muhammad Ali entitled The New World Order, Islamic Law, a Solution for World Peace, a solution to the Muslim problem in the Middle East, basically a plan to pay Islam to secure peace from Islamic aggression and proof of submission to Islamic law and admittance that Islam is superior to all other religions. It is extortion and criminal activities such as extortion, intimidation, violence, deception, and theft that should never be classified as a religion, as it has here and abroad. And that is the New World Order. The plan would be to establish, through stealth and infiltration, to establish the Islamic State among the non-Muslim population of a city. Nothing would change. Nobody should even notice its transfer from the current regime to the next, so that there is no panic or chaos, nor any rebellion or alarm. The only difference will be in the taxation of the citizens. It won't be a new tax. Read Bush's lips, no new taxes. But it will be the same taxes the citizens have always paid, and to who they paid them to as before with the old regime, with this one exception, that taxes collected from the Christians and Jews are to be transferred to the banks of Islam for the purpose of building and expanding Islam, or as the United Nations New World Order plan explains, to take from the haves, the Christians, and give to the have-nots, Islam, being declared a minority and thereby a preferred religious establishment of the state. Other than that taxation deviation, a non-Muslim community can be totally engulfed in its submission without even knowing it. The only foreseen problem are those churches who refuse to pay the tax taken from the Christian to transfer to the Muslim in accordance to the submission to Islam, the preferred religious establishment of the state, which never should have been allowed to happen, for such always kills peace and gives birth to war. Islamic taxes collected from Protestant schools and churches are put in Islamic banks, like AIG, that recently announced that Americans better get used to working until they're 83. Protestant taxes for Islamic banks for Islamic loans for Muslims only. Islamic law encourages discrimination and preaches Islamic supremacy, another trait of a crime, not a religion. The only problem that arises is in this infusion into the New World Order and those lone churches who will refuse to pay the tax, or small groups of individuals who will sincerely believe that it's their duty to defend their state and federal constitutional laws and think to take up arms against the Islamic State, their law enforcement and civilian and military units. Thus, the best case scenario is preventative measures of disarming the general public for less bloodshed during the transition. Re-education centers should be built immediately to accommodate those who choose to resist the New World Order for their own safety and protection from those whose purpose is obeying the laws of the Quran and the order of the Islamic State, an Islamic zone within America. An Islamic State covertly controlled by minority Muslims, fast-tracked, using affirmative action to place as many Muslims as possible in key positions in sensitive offices, regardless of qualification or verification or certification, but just because they are Muslim. And American lawmakers are rebuked for even suggesting investigating Islamic infiltration into such positions, as if it shouldn't be suspicious in and of itself for the Secretary of State to have a Muslim aide, or that the Muslim Brotherhood could not be terrorist without her. Egypt wouldn't belong to the Muslim Brotherhood now. The real connection is in Indiana with Carson. Then you'll get the big picture and why the need for a proper investigation and exposing of the facts for the considerations of we the people. Why? Because in a Muslim state, they have an obligation to the Muslim communities of providing security and protection for them, which includes and uses the same law enforcement and military as the land wherein the Muslims occupy. And that is the Islamic strategy and the plan for implementing the New World Order, the cooperation of the current government of the Constitution and we the people in implementing this establishing of an independent Islamic State upon our lands without firing a shot, all without people even finding out. So they hoped, and explains what Representative Carson meant when he was speaking at the recent pro-Sharia conference, when he told those here undercover, Allah will stop you. Because even though Carson claims that he just wants an honest conversation about this, he can't, and he won't, because the only thing he could do and would do is deny it all, as if none of the facts are there, as if only his lies are a reality, deceiving himself. Then comes Bill Clinton, whose part was to throw the doors open wide to the enemy of Christianity and throw out our immigration laws, not get rid of them as to cause an uproar, just simply ignore them, don't enforce them, making them bold, yet remain as of some effect and no sense of loss for the public, conquered without firing a shot, without the people even knowing what has happened here in America, in Indiana, the heart of the Bible Belt. Another little known fact is that President Clinton has been warned about the Islamic threat coming to America. I know because I wrote it myself. Yet Clinton claimed that he was aware and making it a national security priority to increase aviation security in our airports and in our aircraft, of which we have a copy of Clinton's response letter. Yet Clinton did nothing. Clinton did not do what he claimed that he was in the process of doing, and 9/11 was a result of Clinton's lie. Clinton also made Waco an example of any religious establishment that resists or speaks out against the government in accordance with Islamic law, which would explain how the president of a Christian nation could use military force and attack a small community and burn it to the ground, killing women, men, and children inside, and later find out the government was involved in lying to the people and covering up unlawful actions of the federal agencies. Clinton also lied under oath about his having a hard time finding his coat in the closet. Then comes George Bush Jr. to put the finishing touches on his daddy's New World Order by declaring the faith-based initiatives wherein the government could finally funnel tax dollars into establishments of religion for charity works by sidestepping, abolishing, not enforcing the First Amendment and all the constitutional laws of individual states concerning the separation of church and state, that which is the only thing preventing religious civil wars, all in order to establish this Islamic New World Order of 666, this New World Order of the false prophet Islam. Isn't it odd that George Bush was the president when the order was given to seize and bulldoze the rebellious Indianapolis Baptist Temple and Academy for refusing to pay the tax to the Islamic State for the purpose of building an Islamic mosque in America? Yet he is another of the church's heroes. And even he is too ashamed of what he's done to show his face. And finally, now comes Obama, putting the finishing touches on the New World Order, the capstone, who not only endorses the faith-based initiatives, continuing to willfully violate constitutional law, but triples the funding and finds a way to give Islam official preferential status via the Commerce Department. Think about that. Now the government is giving financial preferences to Islam over Christianity in taxes, in loans, in status, and education, fast-tracking affirmative action, giving positions of power to those unqualified, unworthy, and even the unstable. As long as they're Muslim, they're getting those positions, and we can't even ask why. Why? Because you're living in an Islamic state, a second-class citizen, and paying your Islamic tax, and getting your children Islamic indoctrination in public schools. The name of your Lord has been banned from the state capital and replaced with the name of Allah, the God who begets not nor is begotten. The conspiracy of the Crossroads is that the city of Indianapolis and the state of Indiana has been a testing grounds for implementing the New World Order, an experiment to see if it's possible to integrate the Muslims and the Christians together. The problem is only one side that knows about it. Another problem is that nobody is telling the truth about the consequences or the result of this unlawful and deadly combination. Nobody is talking about the casualties that have resulted here in Indiana since the implementation of this Islamic state of Indiana with its attacks by the IRS, the Islamic Revenue Service, and the numerous violations of citizens' constitutional laws. And there's not to be any consequences for such an insurrection, this treasonous conspiracy. The bet is to admit it was only an experiment, pull the plug and disclose their findings. If not, and they are seriously wanting to keep us as a conquered people and this an Islamic state, then we have a very serious problem on our hands. And either way, we do. If you're one of those who still needs more evidence that the state of Indiana actually tried to become one of those stealthy Islamic states, consider these facts. Unlawful preference given to Islam by classifying Muslims as a preferred status. Indiana state capitol bans the name of Jesus, but allows the name of Allah. Consider the recent lies of Representative Carson that he's for the First Amendment and against Islamic instruction in public education, and has been educating children at Indianapolis public schools with Islamic doctrine and principles longer than Representative Carson has even been a Muslim. Took a Protestant's job and abducted his child for his criticism of Islam's infiltration in Indiana and America, and finally seized and bulldozed this same Protestant's church and son's private school, the Indianapolis Baptist Temple Academy, for failure to pay the taxes that were going into Islamic hands. Now all you've got to do is look at Islam's game plan on establishing Islamic domain in a predominantly non-Muslim city, or as in this case, the very heart of the Bible Belt. And then look at the evidence of what's going on and what's been going on. And the conspiracy is no longer a conspiracy, but a conviction. And the state and those who consider to overthrow or abolish our constitutional laws by deceiving the people and keeping them in the dark may not be punished in this world, but it will in the next, I assure you. We are instructed by the Word of God not to assist in any way these antichrists, let alone pay taxes or tithe to those who desire to eradicate us. It doesn't make good sense, and it's a violation of the Word. So no, we will not bow to any false authority, and we will continue to uphold, defend, and protect the laws of we the people that has, up until now, prevented such a conflict, such as this, from ever arising. Stephen Michael Schroeder.
DJ Official, you a monster, man. Hey, I want to holler at all my Romans 116 big soldiers. Let's stand up and represent. K-A-A, you know, stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. Really though, I just came to tell you, don't be scared. Preach the word everywhere you go and let the truth